Hello, and welcome to another STEM tutorial by Pure Legacy Future Innovators. As you will notice on the left, we have switched out project number 3 and 4 to a new project since we do not currently have the materials for the original planned. We've also adjusted number 6 to an undecided project yet to be determined. Currently up, we will be working on the DIY wooden Bluetooth speaker. And up next will be the model of the Earth, Moon, and Sun. All links to any STEM tutorials will be found in the details below the video. Let's go ahead and get started. So this particular project was initially planned to be completed before an amazing and talented young man in Carter County completed the project on his own at one of our STEM events with the Carter County Drug Prevention Coalition. So let's go ahead and get everything laid out here, and I'm going to turn on some music in my headphones to be able to work alongside too. The crazy thing about this is this is actually my first time building it, even though the young gentleman I mentioned before had already built one. So let's go ahead and get everything out. Now, it doesn't seem to be that this one has the screwdriver, so I have been keeping extra screwdrivers from previous kits, which I do recommend just as extra precautionaries for anyone who is going to follow these and do multiple videos. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything out of the wood, that is the parts. You can do this in your own order that you feel like, but this is just something that I do personally. Some of these you do need to be careful with to not break. I will say that this speaker is quite loud from seeing the demonstration both at the event as well as the video he sent to me from him, well, his mother actually sent to me after the event of him testing it out. So on this one, it is actually more detailed, but I recommend going by the directions, read them before building this. But due to the sake of time, I will strictly just do this as I go. So the first part is it shows us the layout of the speakers and the battery. Something I personally recommend is that, I guess you are doing this on your own, or if you're a parent doing this with children, is simply just lay out the objects, how they are on the instructions, and that way you can see more in detail of how it needs to be put together. Some of these, I guess you could say instructions more or less, are just visually there. There's not as many details in the steps that I would like this I wish there were. But as you can see here on the Bluetooth motherboard, circuit board as it's described, something else we'll need to get better at is using the terms and having them flash across the screen. It shows a particular way that it's set down. So that is why I will set it like that before putting it together. Because visually looking at this, it is simple, but some of the other kits, both the prior kits and other ones, there's many ways in which they can look like it should be that way, but then you find out that you somehow have it wrong. These bags are also extremely tiny, so I'm trying to get this pack of screws open. Bear with me for one moment. I always do something like this. I also have links in one of our previous videos for magnetic screwdrivers, which will make this extremely easy for young children, as well as any adults or older siblings that is helping. Just because in some situations of smaller battery packs, potentially this one, that hole for putting the screws through to fasten it to a board is hard to get the screw in with your fingers. This one may be easier, we'll see. So on the diagram, it shows that one speaker goes here and one goes there. Now, if you notice, black, red, black, red. So that also helps you know that if you were to look at these, if I can get it to focus there, there's like that plastic extension that also helps on both this kit and other kits for how to put it into any type of circuit board. But the wiring color is also a very easy way to determine. These should not be forced in. I'm trying to do it in a way to where you can see them go in. Now, on the on and off switch, as well as on the other wiring, there is different tips to put that in. Now, I'm hoping this one is not broken because one seems to be missing on this one. Granted, it's not shown anywhere on here. That's how it should look prior. So I'm hoping that just eventually that's how it's supposed to look and it's not actually broken to where there should be a second one, but we will find out. An easy way to remember everything is that just like any of our other projects, red goes to red, black goes to black. So I'm gonna look at all of this and see that a red goes into the red that's in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And since this one does not have a tip, I'm gonna go with how if you look at how the button looks there and imagine it in an offsetting, I'm gonna position that button just like that to where the one with the point lines up to go towards the direction of where this red is on the diagram. So I'm gonna go ahead and fasten these here. We'll line up the part that shows the silver parts. I cannot fully see in the diagram, but I can see it go through. Now, to answer my other statement before of hoping none of these were broke off, if I look into this on the red one on the battery pack, it answers my question that it wasn't, because this one has one to go into the red right here. And I'm hoping that you all can see this. I'm just trying to do this to where it captures the angle. Now be careful with these as they can puncture your fingers. I've had it happen before on other kits. And then I'm gonna go ahead and fasten. One thing I do need to get is more of these that makes, oop, and as you can see, I almost broke it there. So what I'm gonna have to do is grab some tape and hope that that doesn't hurt anything to where I can just keep this tightened, because I did bend it. So again, be very careful as you're doing these. I should have remembered to mention this before, which I will now write down. During all of our videos, I recommend watching through before building alongside, since this is typically my first time building these. So I'm gonna write that as a note. So one moment, please. So I'm gonna write that as a note so that way on future projects, I have that to set as a reminder, watch these videos through, then rewind them and build alongside. All right, so after that is built, the next step shows us actually putting it on the board. Now I have done this first, minus this I can take off. Now granted, with the ability that I have of multiple of these with screws and these platforms. I believe I could build these with this still connected. So I'm gonna go and, well, actually I'm gonna leave these connected. And it looks like I'm actually gonna need the one with the 4 holes. So, and with the way it's laid out, it shows that the red one actually goes here. These are hard to get apart, so again, recommend washing these through, then build on. But I'm gonna go and just keep them all connected. But if I flip over, I see some of the wiring is put through boards, so I'm gonna have to find a way to take these apart. So it seems like if you hold from the side and wiggle is the best way to take them apart. Just be easy because these motherboards are very tiny. So that is a step-by-step tutorial of how to put that together, but once again, watch through and then build alongside with us. Something must have fell. All right, so it shows on here, the red one is placed this way. Now, you can't fully see it, but it sits off the board some by the spikes underneath. So be very careful as you are putting these screws in. One thing on this one I do like is it does describe the screws. One is long, one is short. However, looking at all of these, they look almost the same. They all look about the same length. Now, as I continue to flip more over, I notice that there is smaller ones. So look for the screw that is longer in size. More of the long screws are present than the smaller ones, so we need to make sure that we use the long ones when it states. That way we have the smaller screws as needed. I'm assuming that these long screws mitigate the risk of breaking the spikes. That way it has more space as it goes. Not my area of expertise, but that would just be my assumption. So, I do wish that I had one of the magnetic screwdrivers with me. I always recommend doing one very, very lightly and then going to your other side and doing the opposite side. Kind of like how you do lug nuts in a star pattern on a tire. Please no correction if I have stated that wrong for how you tighten lug nuts on a tire. And I'm going to make sure that it's not too tight and that I didn't grab a short screw. Nope, I didn't grab a short screw. Just because that one went down farther. So I'm gonna tighten it until I can't twist very easily. Now, as you can see, I've almost misaligned that one because it doesn't want to go in. So I'm gonna loosen this some and try and line. It actually either looks like I put one too far forward or one. So this one seems to be misaligned a little bit. Another reason of why doing them in a pattern helps. Because even with this one now loose, you can see how far it sits off the board. So be very careful as you fasten these screws not to fasten them too hard. So on this one, I can see that it's not aligning the best. So I'm gonna turn it sideways to see how it lines up to the hole. This is also an area to where I can notice very much that that lift comes into a serious play. So I'm gonna try and tighten it as much as I can without breaking the board. All right, once that is done, it then goes to showing how we put in the wire for the speakers, the issue becoming that, also by the way, these speakers are magnetic, that it has it unwired and put through, well, that is actually the other wiring that is put through from here. So I'm going to see if very quickly I can, this is interesting. So that's where that on and off switch is going to go. The issue is that I bent this one. So it's going to be to where I have to risk taking this apart or now solving a problem that I created for myself. Because it actually shows tying the speakers in a loop. So I'm going to take a look and see where they go through. So it looks like the top larger one is put on last for the on and off switch, which it just goes through. But in earlier steps, it shows the battery pack going through the battery pack. So it shows this wire going through, or actually the battery pack wire going through. So I can't get that through. So I'm going to be left with hoping that I can take these apart just due to this one. But with this apart, now I can take that through there as needed. So I'm going to take our board and the wire and go ahead and plug this in just to have it ready to go. But then I remember why I took it off. So this video is definitely done a little dysfunctional, just where I'd messed up this wire. I do apologize, but just attempt to remember to watch these videos before building it. So this is the same direction of the steps because I'm putting these two wires from the battery pack through. I just have to keep this connected where I bent that one to avoid any risk of messing it up. It shows where the wires come through as being towards the bottom. So I'm going to know that I need to align these holes on here, and it shows the short screws on this one. This is where I'd mentioned that having a magnetic screwdriver would come in handy, because now I have to try and hold the screw and the screwdriver while keeping this in place. Once again, just like this one, don't tighten it too much, just enough to hold it in place. Another easy way to show is to use a finger and hold against the screwdriver, and then go back and tighten as needed. All right, so from there, it then has a skip over to the speakers. If you look, it has almost a similar layout. So I'm gonna go with these lines of being what I need to put it through. It looks like they tied the knot on the speaker. I personally am not going to do that, even with it showing to, just because I don't want to mess anything up currently. And it looks like we are placing these upside down, lining up everything. Check for any uneven nature. And it shows to use the short screws. Once again, why it's important to look at the screws that you're using. If you're looking to find a way to hold it, just hold it like that. And put a finger on there to hold it in place. Don't screw too tight. And go to the opposite side and do the same on this one. I'm going to rotate it, just due to having to hold this without a magnetic screwdriver. So rotate your board as needed. You can follow as I done if that helps, but keeping it to where you can make sure to get the screws on. Recommendation for if you are watching this through the first time, separate the long screws and the short screws to different piles, just because it will speed up time for you instead of making sure that you have the right screw. So I'm gonna go back through and tighten these. Everything looks proportional on here on the board, so I don't really have to worry if I'm putting them on in any type of wrong order, other than the fact that if I look at the picture, the wires go down, not out. So as you can see, sometimes looking at the picture helps, but you can miss small details just like so. I do not redo these videos just because I think it's important to show how errors can be made, even if it does look unprofessional in ways. But this is designed to be a tutorial to where individuals, kids can learn, and why I will now begin recommending at the beginning of videos to watch through the first time and then go back and build, because something small like that can make a big difference when it's needed like this. So although this video is full of mistakes, it is a great perfect example out of all the previous videos that sometimes any mistake can happen, but it's learning how to adjust to it. And sometimes I end up looking back at the screen that I'm recording this on just to make sure that I have everything in view. So that is the proper way to put those on. Now, as if I notice, watch this. I can move it around. So do be careful as you move these speakers around on the table. I recommend personally holding this as you can, like we've done before, just due to the magnetic ability that can push the board around. And I've tightened that one a little too tight because now this side is lifting up, and so I'm going to have to tighten this one just a little bit tighter. So if this is your first time watching this through, looks like most of the small screws are used for the battery pack and for the speakers. Because I see one, Looks like I see one more small screw, so somewhere along the lines I've used one of the other ones. I've noticed on previous kits that sometimes in certain spots on these, using a long screw instead of a small screw can affect it fitting together. Now it shows that the next picture shows some steps here to pay attention to the red circle. So with the wires putting this way, I'm going to find that piece. I'm going to see that the top is on the right side, and we'll go ahead and put that through. Now on these, I recommend holding both the bottom and the piece, and then it doesn't show it on here, but to install it, simply flip it over. There's a hole in this type of one. Holding everything is important, and you can just touch it, spin it, and just don't spill your screws as I have just done. Let's see how it holds easily. And so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that in. Now these are very flimsy boards, so do be careful at all precautions. Now with this here, I'm gonna look at this piece and it looks like it's all the same. Has the lines each position. So I'm going to kind of check to see it doesn't circle it on there. So it looks like at either end I can put this into the board. Go ahead, and this time I'm going to show a more up close version of how you can easily hold the back, hold the screw, just twist it in enough for it to stay there, and then just check the level and watch it as it spins through. I'm gonna make sure to tighten this a little bit off seam just because of how easy it was to move. Now after you're done there, it shows the wires like this, and it shows putting the top part of this down onto here. So in my situation, since this one's connected, on yours it should just be these without that connected since mine's messed up. I'm gonna check and align accordingly on the picture. I'm gonna be very gentle with putting these down just because you can press too hard as I've done in other and break that. So I'm gonna go in and put the screws in and try and tighten it with as much balance to this as it shakes. Try on these not to spin too hard because with this being a very fragile piece of wood, it can strip easily or cause a crack. So twist just accordingly and use your own judgment. As you can see here, this one will just set and spin. All right, from there we have this built, but it shows down here, it looks like the wiring just empties off. The reason being is that if you then flip to the inside, it shows here, just like on step one of how I originally done this, how that will connect. So if needed, refer to the first image on the page. And it says the wires of the speaker are plugged into the white terminals. So go ahead and bring this out and plug in the whites of the speakers to the terminals. In this situation, it looks like if you are holding it this way to where the speakers are there, battery pack's here, that the white boards are going to be placed like this. So I'm going to go back to here, plugging the far one into its position on the paper here, this one onto, well, since mine's out of order, I'm going to go back in, fasten these together. So in this step that you would typically have this separate, you would fasten that one there, fasten the red to the red here, to the red here, making sure not to break them. And then there's the other red wire inside of here. Make sure that you are putting these together with this facing here. Go ahead and plug in the other side. And then plug in there. Because see, our steps for mine is a little bit out of order, because now I will then take this and put it in here. Now, the interesting part is another mistake has been made, because the layout of this on and off switch has to go in like this. So, and an off switch goes in like this. I messed up at the get-go, basically just hurting that one, and was looking at how this is wired up. Here, what you can practice is to make sure you have down. So now I will then go and wire this. However, I've got to remember that internally it can be wired up as needed for how and which direction, but I will be technically crossing these over. Because it looks like you only connect the black, because this is going to go through here. This one is not the best example of our videos. Push that through. Not the best example, but definitely one of the more cooler kits. Some prior errors caused complications for this one, but I'm gonna notice that it seems to be that the wiring, if this is here, that's there. So I'm gonna look back at this to show a important note. That side is opposite of that circle side. So I'm gonna see that here is opposite of here, which then tells me for this part, that side has to where, see, that's the thing here, is it doesn't show the exact focus, because that's the last time it shows that circled side. And then when I flip over, that side is still there. Just put the bottom on. But as you can see, it disappears. So the only thing I can see is that potentially, but see here how this one doesn't want to go through too easy. This one doesn't want to go through too easily, and I don't want to force it. I put this onto the wrong side, and so I'm going to attempt to slide this through just due to the errors being mitigated, but it may not be possible. But that's the thing though, is that the wires are there. This shows opposite, yeah. The wiring is on that side, so I do have it correct. Just maybe potentially the positioning, or as anything can happen. So 3, 3. And that is the error of these instructions, to where it's honestly a very easy way to understand problem solving, but also get comfortable that errors can be made and confusion can happen. Because as you can see, most of these don't say locations, it just says very simple and pictures. So it's a very much a project of figuring it out as you go. So we'll go ahead and install the last bit of the screws. I'm also going to take a bet and say either that screw, since shorter, is one of the other short screws that I used here and shouldn't have, or that's the part to where it was lifted up higher and I couldn't put the screws in as far as the others. Sometimes, not always, you don't need to put in all of these, but for the sake of this, I'm just doing it either way. So as we're nearing to the end, I do hope that you've watched this through the first time. Adjustments are being made, and I will plan on doing a new one of these. But we have now reached the final part, to where I'm gonna go with that this is just meant for air and sound. And I had previously got and was worried that it would be due to some type of issue. Now, a reminder, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's gonna go that way. So I'm gonna hold it this way to remember that. Put this in with those lined together. What I mean by lined together is the 2 silver dots there. And I'll place these in, make sure everything is inside. And and those come down fairly easy. So I'm just gonna work my way around. And let's put in the final screws and do a test trial. I'm gonna pause my current music, take my headphones off of my other phone that plays the music, so that way I can Bluetooth music to the speaker. We're coming down to it. I also will get some batteries. Any leftover screws, if any, just keep. Granted, sometimes I have leftover screws where I will say skip that just to keep some extra screws on hand. Since these projects are mine, you can skip them if you like. Sometimes extra screws or buying the DIY kits that come with like the on and off switches, the battery packs and so forth are helpful. So go ahead and get some batteries. Hopefully these aren't dead from the previous project. Without throwing them everywhere. Putting the flat part here, which, unless you are a very young child watching this, is a very easy, but anybody can build these, as well as a younger child in kindergarten building it with, say, an older sibling and third. All right, now let's find the song. I should have done some recommendations, so I'm gonna try and find one that is just simply music. Go ahead and turn this on. Ooh, as you can see, it's loud. This is strictly this. So this is strictly this. I'm gonna go into my Bluetooth. It's gonna pull up Z-Horse Bluetooth speaker, connect to it, go back over, and let's just go piano music for stress relief since I messed this up. Now I'm gonna turn the volume. I mean, you can see here, the volume's pretty low. Now watch how loud this gets. It is a very loud speaker. This speaker is quite impressive. So, an easy speaker to build while camping and allow the kids to use and play music off. It is very loud, by the way. Just as an example, I will play something, hopefully that comes to where let's see here. And I'm gonna go with this one because it was the first one in mine, and I'm gonna turn it down so that way we can watch how loud it gets. I love this song, and so only in a perfect way. This is like not even half. Yes, a very loud speaker indeed. Very loud speaker indeed. So, looking for a cool thing to build? Not wanting to purchase a speaker for camping? This is the perfect one. So, follow us on Twitter at Tennessee or TN Future Innovators 19. Facebook, just do a Future Innovators search. If you can't pull it up too easy, just Google search Pure Legacy Future Innovators. We have more STEM kits coming up, and as you can tell, I'm not worried about mistakes. Mistakes will happen. These kits for kids are meant to build skills, to build excitement, to build various things inside their mind, skill sets, and much more. So, learning this creates a way to dream. It's also a very loud speaker, remember.
Trouble melts like lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find